It all started with a very simple idea. Tell the stories of how successful middle market CEOs made it to the corner office. I'm Brant Handley, founder and managing director of Resource Options International, or ROI. We're the USA's premier executive search firm focused exclusively on empowering middle market companies to attract, hire, and retain A players while transforming top executives' careers and lives. ROI's Into the Corner office is dedicated to discovering how middle market CEOs advance their career, and we're making these remarkable and sometimes quite unbelievable stories available to you for the very first time. Listen and learn about the challenges they've overcome, the interesting people they've met along the way, and the lessons learned that steered these executives' unique journey into a middle market corner office of their own. I know you enjoy these CEO stories as much as I've enjoyed recording them. So thank you for listening today. And if you like what you've heard, rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. I'm looking forward to you joining me on the next great middle market CEO adventure into the corner office. Today, my guest is Steve Hedrick, Chairman, President, and CEO of AVN Corp, based in South Charleston, West Virginia. AVN delivers market-driven innovation, research, technical engineering, and technology commercialization for the chemical, energy, environmental, and advanced software sectors. Steve has more than 3 decades of broad-based leadership experience with more than 20 years of experience in the petrochemical industry, leading businesses, chemical manufacturing, and health, safety, environment, and quality. Prior to AVN, he held numerous roles of increasing responsibility at Lyondell and the Bayer Corporation, and has led multiple regional and global teams to improve business results, reliability, and safety systems. His entry into the chemical industry followed service as an officer in the United States Army. A native of West Virginia, Steve holds a BS in chemical engineering from the United States Military Academy at West Point. Steve Hedrick, welcome into the corner office.
Thanks so much, Brent. Stoked to be here with you, and hopeful that we can spend a few minutes together today to bring some benefit to your listeners. See what we can do.
Gosh, so exciting, Steve. And, we met about, I guess 6-7 months ago now. One of our moonshotters, I guess, you're a fellow moonshotter. We had a chance to meet in August and in the UK, had a wonderful time there, and just learned so much about different companies and opportunities to grow the business, and very, very excited to hear how your career has, benefited not just from, obviously that conference and your association with that organization, but the other things that you've done. Our listeners, of course, tune in to really kind of figure out how they might, want to be in the corner office someday.
Excellent.
We like to start in the beginning, and that's kind of where things all began for you. So, tell us a little bit about your early years, early family life, mom and dad, brothers and sisters.
Oh, cool. Thanks for that. That's a great question, right? Great way to start. I'm a kid born of Appalachia, right? In the United States. For those who might be listening internationally, it's in the coal fields of West Virginia, eastern Kanawha County, in a place called Kelly's Creek, which you shouldn't know where it is. If you do, you're wrong. But that's where we got our start, in a place called Cedar Grove. My dad was in the coal industry, my mother focused on bringing along my 2 sisters and I, and we made our way, right?
Yeah. What did your dad do in the coal industry?
He did everything in the coal industry. Yeah, he was a miner and progressed through to help run part of the railroad for the coal company he was associated with. He did a lot of different gigs for them, right? And he was a foreman. I can remember these different jobs that he did, and had pretty positive influence over the people that he worked with, as I recall, and from talking to them. And but it was good, right? And he was working with the parents or the dads of all my pals, right? In the small school in which I was in, because they were all vocationally focused on the same thing, right? In large part to work in the coal industry where we were.
And mom was stay at home. You mentioned 2 sisters. Where are you in the pecking order? Are you the oldest, the youngest, in the middle?
So my oldest sister would call me the baby, and I'm the youngest. I have two older sisters, fantastic. Both progressed in their life journey as school teachers, right?
Cool.
And my oldest sister is continuing as a chemistry teacher in a local high school. Sister, who's closest in age to me, was a biology teacher, and she's since retired, but both of them had that calling, right, to influence kids in a positive way in their journey. So,
and they stayed in the region as well, in West Virginia, or do they move on?
My oldest sister actually never lived outside of West Virginia. My sister, who's closest in age to me, lives in the state of Kentucky with her husband. Right, they've had families along the way, and their children are somewhat scattered, right, across as kids will do. They move and they're making their own lives and doing their thing. And it's, but really proud of them both. They've had great influences, great journeys thus far, and continuing their thing.
Well, let's talk a little bit about those early influences, remembering back with, dad growing up in the industry, mom was at home, older sisters that, were looking out for you. Probably felt like you had three moms probably at one point in time. What were some of those things in early childhood that you remember, that kind of impacted you the most when you thought about work and, what was important to succeed as you kind of had, connections with the people around you growing up?
Yeah, a couple of things there. Thanks for that question. Right, a couple of things around that early memories for me. One is growing up in Appalachia, growing up in West Virginia, creates the opportunity to see, observe, engage in, and digest yourself a great work ethic. And I would offer that from an early age, I had the opportunity to get to be involved in what was going on, right? To get to be part of, and I think it's important for humans, right, of whatever age. But I was benefited greatly at a young age to get to be part of the solution, right? And for some people, right, that sounds like work, and for me, even still today, it sounds like getting to solve the problem, right? So, so I remember getting to work on a number of different things, which created some opportunity for mechanical aptitude around even things like lawnmowers and so forth, and chainsaws and splitting wood for my grandfather, and doing those kind of things that helped me understand how things got done really in the real world. And shout out to my oldest sister, right? I think she knew from however young, I don't know, that she was going to be a school teacher, because I understood the basics of math and how to read long before I ever went to school. In large part thanks to her. She would just sit and help me to understand how to do these basic things from a very early age, and I think I benefited from that. Right, I got a head start.
That's awesome. What's the age gap between you and your oldest sister?
7 years. She's 7 years older than me. Yeah.
So she really was
cool
a
lady.
mom.
Very cool.
Ways, huh? Yeah. What about school? You a good student?
I did okay, right? Coming along, I was able to be pretty quick on the uptake, in the early, K through 12 kind of schooling. I had the great benefit, right? Talk to high school for just a minute. I had the great benefit of having to take chemistry from the National Science Teacher of the Year. DuPont High School that I attended, and Shirley Kelly, God rest her soul, she's passed away. She had great influence on a lot of young minds that had some aptitude towards a STEM education, and I will tell you why I benefited greatly from her. It wasn't just about chemistry; is that she demanded excellence. She didn't teach to the lowest common denominator or any other denominator. She demanded excellence of individuals, and if you were capable, then she expected more. And if you were more capable, then she wanted to find out where your limits were. And for me, what a fantastic find, right? And it just happened to be that I took chemistry from her, which had a natural progression. Right, we'll get into my vocational activities along the way, but she had a great influence on what was to come.
With our CEO guests, there's always a person, sometimes it's a parent, but sometimes it's a teacher or a mentor or someone that's a former boss that really does provide some of those, key learnings early on that will really stick with us for life.
Yeah, right on. And we called her Miss Kelly, right? Back in the day.
Right.
But, she did that for, for a couple of generations of people there in that high school. And she did it her way. She was wildly successful with it. And across the hallway, to be fair, was Billy Smith. She taught, advanced placement biology and anatomy and physiology. And interestingly, in that end of that hallway, Brent, the standards were high. and I thought it was great because, again, she said, how fast can you go? Right? How fast can you go? So let's find out. And I applaud both of them for not putting a governor on what the capabilities were by simply just checking the block and doing the job. They tried to push, and so I benefited greatly from the influence of those two ladies, and I applaud them still today.
Awesome. Yeah, you mentioned something earlier, which unfortunately has happened, I think, a lot in our public, education system, is that teaching to the lowest common denominator, right? And it tends to really get diluted, and so many kids get bored because they're not challenged. And I think keeping that bar high is something, unfortunately, that's been lost in a lot of school systems these days. So glad to hear that lives on.
Yeah, some that would be true of, not all, and I wouldn't want to paint all the teachers with one brush or the other, right? Because they're all their own individuals, their own capabilities, their own aptitudes, their own desires, and let's not forget that they're like our employees today, they're human beings who have influences on them from outside the schools, outside of everything that, again, as a 16, 17, 18-year-old, I didn't understand everything that was going on in their lives, but they brought it for me, right? So, I observed that as these teachers have lives too, and broader impact, and they still have to come and show up and deliver excellence. So, hat tip to them.
What about other activities were you involved in? Sports, music, theater, debate?
I played it all, sports-wise, from an early age, whether it was basketball or baseball or track or football, which football became my true passion. But from a sporting activity, but I played football all along the way, up to and including a little bit in college, right? And it was something that was so much fun to me, and it made so much sense to me, right? The theory of the game and understanding how it should work and why it should work. And I credit Coach Dick Whitman, fantastic teacher of leadership and influencer of young men. God rest his soul. Also, he's passed away, but he, I was fortunate enough to serve as a team captain under his coaching, and I credit him very early on. Right, I was a teenager, but I was a team captain, so he treated me as a team captain. And how am I going to lead this group, and how am I going to lead my peers? And I offer, again, kudos to him. He had expectations that were not off the reservation. He had expectations of a young leader to do the things that were necessary, even if I didn't quite yet understand the theory of leadership. Right. But awesome. He boosted these things. Great guy.
Yeah. Awesome. And, any kind of entrepreneurial things? Did you have jobs, growing up? Were you expected to, eventually, contribute to your education? And we'll talk about that in a minute. But, tell me about kind of those high school and junior high years. What'd you do to keep yourself busy after school?
I mowed grass all over the town from which I came from, to earn a buck as a little kid, right? I mean, however old I was when I started, and I don't remember, forgive me for that, but at a young age, I started mowing the grass for whomever would let me mow the grass, and making a buck that way from early on. And then I guess it doesn't hurt anybody's feelings for me to say a brand name, right? But my first job that I could have, I guess, was at McDonald's. Right,
Oh, cool.
I was back in the kitchen slinging burgers and making the fries, doing all the stuff that goes on in a fast food kitchen, and did the thing, right. And yeah, folks who are doing that today, God love you, right? It's a hard job, and it's thankless.
Thankless,
and so I learned a lot of lessons there, right, with regards to having the opportunity to understand the corporate culture, understand what the standards were, right? And they have a training program that said these are the standards by which everybody's going to perform, and you do the thing. And I worked there for I think 3 summers, and focused largely during the academic years on my studies and on sports, which it's kind of hard to fit a third thing in there at that time.
Right. Awesome. And you were accepted at West Point. Congratulations, and thank you for your service after that. Tell us a little bit about how you kind of determined that a military career might be the thing for you, because was your father in the service? Did you?
My dad was in the Air Force before I was born, right? But I knew. I think I'm a little bit odd this way. Maybe I'm odd in many ways for him, but I knew early on I wanted to go do this thing, right? I either wanted to attend Annapolis or attend West Point, and I think I sent my first letter to United States senators in 8th grade and said I want to go do this thing, and good on them. I got a letter back from one of them based on that first letter that said, "You seem like a fine young man. You've got to do these things along the way, and get back in touch with us in a few years." And so I did.
And was that senator, that congressman, your recommendor then at the end? Because I know that you have to have one or two, I think, right, from your state.
I was really fortunate and blessed to have a recommendation for appointment to the academies, plural, from all of my elected officials, both senators and member of the House of Representatives. I'm very grateful to them for seeing that potential in me and creating an opportunity for me to attend, in the end, as you know, West Point, and really get a jump start on life. Coming out of West Virginia and getting on a plane the first time, not to tell too much on myself, but getting on a plane the first time to go to West Point was a bit of an eye opener for a kid from Kelly's Creek. And but my goodness, what a fantastic education, what a fantastic platform from which to dive into life from West Point. Well-rounded education, very demanding. I studied chemical engineering, as a major. And with a systems engineering minor, but maybe most importantly for life, we all studied leadership, and the demands at West Point, the time crunch, the expectations of ethical performance, it's all great, right? I remember it as very difficult, certainly, but it was great. And lifelong friendships that I formed under that bit of a crucible for a young person, 18 to 22 years old. My teammates from Army football, my teammates from Army powerlifting, and the Army strength team coming out of there. Still love them, right? And they know that, right? I don't shy away from telling them that, and we get in touch with each other as often as we can. But West Point's a fantastic platform. If there's a young person who might be listening to this wondering why it's good, I'd love to talk to you. It is a really great platform that creates leaders of character for our nation that may serve a lifetime of service in the United States Army, or may create an opportunity for them to have a lifetime of service to the nation in a different way. So,
and for those who don't know, the application process is very rigorous, and as our guest has suggested, you need to have a lot of government support, but it is fully paid for by the U.S. government, which is a real nice benefit for 4 years of university. Right?
It is, and it's as I said, it's a It is a world-class education, and
Right.
the folks that I did chemical engineering with was really it was difficult. It was early on in the chemical engineering program there, but mechanical and civil engineering have long been at West Point, and at that time everybody was going to graduate with an engineering background, right? No matter
Right.
what, I guess your major field of study was going to be, everybody's an engineer, and truthfully, as you look back on these things, understanding the demands of those things and their teachings around critical thinking, that's the path that it's painting, right?
Right.
Teaching
Right.
leadership, teaching physicality, and the opportunity to take care of one's health, and these great critical thinking skills that are necessary to be successful in just about anything.
Right.
Yeah, that's coming straight from there.
So 6 years in the Army following that, that's part of the obligation, right? I mean, you
Hmm.
obviously had your tuition paid for, but you also had to serve. You left as a captain.
Right on.
Tours of duty, what tell us a little bit about, those 6 years and what kind of leadership experience that you received during that time?
Yeah. I look back on it with a tremendous amount of pride as a
Mm,
veteran, and I also look back on it as what a fantastic learning ground for again a young leader.
yeah,
Lieutenant in the
yeah.
Army has the opportunity to lead the youngest privates who are coming out of basic training and coming into your unit, as well as 20+ year veterans who are your platoon sergeants, your non-commissioned officers. I recognized early on that the non-commissioned officer corps is the backbone of the United States Army, and it creates great success for it. And
Mm,
um, you learn quickly to be unafraid to learn from those over whom you have a responsibility for,
right.
and so there's teaching in both directions. Tactics, techniques, and procedures that you learn as a young lieutenant that you actually learn from the people you're in charge of.
Mm,
It's a really good thing. And so, yeah, my time on active duty as a lieutenant was, 2nd Armored Cav, and then in 16th Cav where I commanded. But it was just a fantastic experience. I learned so much from great people, and maybe taught a couple of things right along the way. But
I'm sure you did.
it
Overseas
was
postings as well. Is that part of it,
so
or were you?
did
Ooh,
did a couple of assignments
tours.
in that manner. We did the mission down in Haiti when Jean Bertrand Aristide was taken out of
Mm,
power by his army. We
right.
went down there, and as I say it, right, so that I don't paint a picture between Afghanistan and Haiti. They're entirely different animals, right? Totally different missions. And we went down to Haiti and took their weapons from them and put the democratically elected person back in power, helped them run an
Mm,
election, helped them do very hard things, and create infrastructure in a country that doesn't have much. And
right.
yeah, it was a great learning ground, though. I will tell you that learning that our way of life, right, as Americans, is not necessarily embraced by every culture around the world,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Right.
I can remember trying to help a group of people who didn't have much, trying to help them understand that there's a better way, right? There's a
Mm,
better way to supply food to your people. There's a better way to have clean water. This whole thing, right? I don't want to speak too long about it, but at the end of the day, right, the leader of this group of people, told me through my translator, yeah, we're good.
right.
We
Right.
don't want all that stuff that you're talking about. Matter of fact, we just want our lives, and
Yeah.
you guys go on about your way. So
Interesting.
that was a great learning, right? But my soldiers, taking them on a deployment, bringing them home safely, extremely important to me. It was great. And I deployed with a leader in then Lieutenant Colonel. He retired as a Brigadier General, Bill Weber. Fantastic example of a leader who helped me evolve from kind of a fire breather as a second lieutenant scout platoon leader to understanding that there's a broader picture and a lot more at stake than just one unit. And I credit him to also helping me migrate from a right angle world, if you will, to understanding that there's not just black and white. There's gray out there, and you have to understand how to deal with the gray, because most of life occurs in the gray, right?
That's
and
true.
So he's just a great guy, right? And he helped a lot of lieutenants and a lot of captains figure out how to lead, right? To know when to be serious and know when there's time to relax. And he's the first leader that I worked for who was very focused on broadening activities for people with potential, right? Who I think from the earliest days saw the opportunity to take a young lieutenant who had a bunch of potential, who was a hard charger, who wanted to do these things in the military for people that they're working with and for, and create the opportunity to broaden their skill set, right? Not just get promoted, right? Which carried on for me fantastically in the civilian sector. But Bill Weber did that for a lot of people where, teaching people logistics who are on the trigger, right? And helping them to understand why that, the supply chain, imagine that, is so very important to making everything go. And also, I hopefully you don't mind me naming these people's names, but they've done so much for me in my life, even if I only got to be with them for a little while. A guy named Joe Shannon was my first troop commander way back when, and just a great guy, right? Hard charger himself, very focused, very fit, driven. All the things that you want a Cav troop commander to be. And by the way, his wife Vivian was a fantastic person to engage for my wife, right? To get to that, right? My wife Lana and I, right, were assigned to that unit with them. From my earliest days on active duty after doing some training after West Point. And Joe and Vivian were really great to us, helped us understand, again, there's a lot more out there than just what we had done, and expand horizons. So, good on them.
Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about kind of that transition to the private sector now. I know you left after 6 years. I assume that was a honorable discharge at that time. Did you consider a career in the military? And how did you kind of make that decision? Do I stay or do I go? And go on to your the pastors that you've obviously pursued since then.
Sure. It was a zero doubt in my mind kind of thing from the beginning. It was going to be a career military person, and something occurred.
Okay.
I did honorably leave the military, certainly, and it was an emotional departure for me. But the reason was because I love my soldiers so much, and I love the mission. I was passionate for defense of the nation and the things that had to get done. But in a prior deployment, my oldest son was born, and he was a number of months old before I had the opportunity to hold him the first time, and that was remarkably difficult, right? Then, as importantly to that fork in the road, I was present when our youngest son was born. I was there, and had that aha moment that many fathers have of I'm responsible for these young lives, but that connectivity to those young guys made me recognize. I'm probably going to have to do something different, right? And be present for them in so much as I possibly can be. So that was very much the beginning of me thinking about doing a different thing in life in the civilian sector, and in the end, made the choice for our family. We did, as a family, made the choice to leave active duty in the military.
Right. Well, you joined the Bayer organization, spent about a dozen years there. Great company. I'm sure they actively recruited ex-military, as many of these large corporations do. What made you decide to choose to join them?
So, interestingly, I was hired out of the military into Arco Chemical, which the Polyol's business associated with Arco Chemical was divested to Lyondell, and with that, I went with that acquisition, and further, it was acquired by Bayer, right?
By Bayer.
And so I became a member of Bayer, the Worldwide Bayer Group, through acquisitions, and was very fortunate to get the opportunity to work for Bayer, and great company, worldwide influence, and at that time, I was able to fall in with the mantra of science for a better life, because that was the intent, right, of all of the different products and lines that were offered to humanity from that company. And I got the opportunity, Brent, again, this is trendable, to broaden myself, right? I was working as an ops engineer in South Charleston, West Virginia at the time, working with some great people, did all the plants or all the jobs I could do in that plant, and the leadership of Bayer saw the opportunity to maybe take a person with potential, right, and start to broaden them in different business units across Bayer. And I was, again, very fortunate to have people in leadership who were looking for opportunities to help people progress. And I started to do different jobs across Bayer, and I described myself at that time as a fixer, right? And wherever the next problem was, whether it was a business problem, a reliability problem, mechanical problem, an HSE problem, finance, whatever the problem was, the next bigger problem showed up for Bayer. I was not the only one, right? I don't want to hold myself out that way, but whatever the next biggest problem was, they turned to us, and I had the great fortune to have a family that was willing to move, and we moved all over the place, right? Just as we did in the military, and went to solve the next hard problem wherever that was. And
How was it? Tell us a little bit about the leadership differences, say, between leading your military and your soldiers for those 6-7 years versus working in a corporate environment. Did you find a lot of the principles applied? And if so, what were those, and what were the ones that you perhaps had to maybe tone down a little bit or do a little differently?
Right on. Great question, Brant. Yeah, all of them applied. I'll say that. All of the leadership learnings that I had up until I became a civilian, they all applied, and so many more that I have learned along the way. As it were, a couple of things that were really important to understand, which I did understand by the very nature, is civilians don't take orders, and they're not going to do it just because you said so. They're going to do it because you made a compelling case to them to understand the reason why this needs to be done, why it's so very important, even though it's hard, and let's work together to accomplish it, which is entirely different than an operations order in the military. But at the end of the day, humans respond favorably to positive leadership, to engagement, to empathy, to caring about the mission and about the individuals, and all of those lessons they apply across no matter what business you're in, whether you're in the military or in the chemical industry or whatever, right? If you're leading a small army of people mowing grass, at the end of the day, people understand when they're cared for, even if things are hard, right? And so that's a lesson that it rolls across all walks of life.
Right. Well, you transitioned from Bayer to your current role at AVN, so let's talk a little bit about that. Tell us who AVN is and your footprint and what customers you serve.
AVN Corporation, we satisfy commercial research and development needs in the chemical, environmental, and energy space, as well as advanced software sector. We service the needs of customers around the world, where we solve the hardest problems that we can get our hands on. We have a fantastic laboratory setting and pilot plant setting and a burgeoning manufacturing sector in the chemical industry, where we have the opportunity, again, to solve the hardest problem of a Fortune 100 company or of a startup and help them de-risk their technology needs from soup to nuts, from the very earliest form of an invention that they need, which we can create, all the way through to deployment of a technology that they need to get in the commercial market. An example of that for everybody who's listening, I think it's topical, but we're very actively engaged in the circular economy associated with plastics. And I have the great fortune to work with wonderful people in the chemical, environmental, and energy sector, right, in our company, which we'll get to advanced software in just a second. But these folks they're world beaters as it relates to their fields. Chemical engineers, chemists, technicians, operators, and my business support group certainly. But they're amongst the best. To hold them up against anyone, anywhere, anytime to get this thing done. And our team is very actively engaged in a broad spectrum of projects, proprietary projects for customers all over the place, and we work on front end stuff for companies that really want to have an aggressive stance for years to come. They want to be out in front of the market. They want to have problems solved, inventions created, and commercial opportunities made before their peers in industry even know that they're maneuvering, and we help them do that, right? And our one of the things that sets us apart, other than our fantastic people and the uncommon infrastructure in which we work, is the fact that when we solve a problem for someone, the intellectual property that is created by virtue of that invention, that solution, that migration and process technology, the customer owns. We don't, right? And we understand that through our contractual obligations that they own it. They walk away with the intellectual property, and they have a fantastic solution to carry on. Now, let me talk about my advanced software gang for just a minute. The advanced software team as COVID has changed, modified the method of work, right, for so many people around the world. My team works from anywhere, right? So I have people all over the United States who are actively engaged in that business unit, and we're delivering fantastic solutions for the Department of Energy, specifically right now around NETL, for their big data architecture needs. And we work on the EDX platform, which we don't need to dive too deeply into, but at the end of the day, our folks, it's an award-winning organization who do deep dives into really the hardest problems of data management, data architecture, and solution finding out of an ocean of data, right, or data lakes, as it were. They do a wonderful job with that. Couldn't be prouder of this team, and prouder of the business support group that supports all of the functional activities around our laboratories, our pilot plants, our manufacturing, and our advanced software organization. They do a wonderful job. Couldn't be prouder.
Awesome. How many employees in total at AVN?
So we're bumping up against 100 right now, right? Which cool. Is in somebody who has worked for a company with 125,000 people, which I have, or in the Army, a gargantuan organization. It feels relatively small, right? But the reality is for entrepreneurs everywhere, entrepreneurs understand that a company of nearly 100 people is actually not too small, as it were, right? And I take the obligations of leading our people, of taking care of our people who are part of our organization. Once you come in, we take that very seriously. It's very important to us that our people are well cared for, and they're going to do hard things for us, right? They're going to get after it in the various sectors in which we're engaged, and our commitment back to them in exchange for all that effort, their intellectual horsepower, their prowess, their novel thinking, their critical thinking, is we want to create a pathway for them to excel, right? To broaden themselves, to have a better opportunity to understand that which they want to understand vocationally, and that which they need to understand to satisfy the needs of our customers around the world. And And you note I say broaden them to create the opportunity for them to be broadened, just as other leaders had created that opportunity for me so long ago, right? And I still pursue that, by the way, right? Continual improvement is part of any leadership journey that anybody's on. I hope it certainly is part of mine. But whether
how would you say your leadership's evolved over time? From the days of a junior lieutenant now to being in the corner office for the last 10 years or so.
That's a great question. At its foundation, I would offer that I have learned a lot more empathy with my fellow employees, my fellow engaged people at AVN Corporation, and across the broader journey. But my level of empathy has it was immeasurably changed across this journey, and understanding. Yeah, people are people. If you want them to bring their whole selves, their whole solution set to any problem that we face, then there's a level of empathy that has to come back from leadership to satisfy many of their other needs, right? And there is not too many things that are more important than that, right? And in the military, we said mission first, soldiers always, and it's that there's a corollary to that in the civilian sector where the mission or this problem that we're solving, it's got to be front and center, right? It's got to carry primacy, as we would say, but we have to take care of our people. We always have to do that, and if we're not taking care of them, they can't possibly focus on the problem that we need solved. And so, so that evolution, empathy, it creates an opportunity for you to be a better leader, but it creates the opportunity to understand your people better, which goes back to the fundamentals of leadership of knowing your people and employing them in accordance with their capabilities. The two of those are tied hand in hand to create an opportunity for success for your people and for your company, right? That's how it goes.
Steve, what do you look for when you're making bets on the people you invest in and hire at AVN?
Yeah, that's a great question. First, I want a teammate. Right? If we set aside the idea that we have to have technical competency, right, because that's a given in the chemical industry, in our business, you have to have technical competency to be able to do any of the jobs that come around in our business. But I want a teammate, right? I want somebody who wants to be in it, not just for themselves. They want to be in it for the people around them, and they want to be in it to solve the problem, right? Critical thinkers who have a passion for solving problems. But I want a teammate. It's of critical importance. So that doesn't mean individual performers or individual contributors aren't important to business, because they're abundantly important to business. But I will tell you that any individual contributor who doesn't have teammates wrapped around them, who doesn't have a friend at work, they can't possibly contribute at the level that you would want them to. Because again, people do hard things for other people, right? Regardless of the name of the company, people do really hard things for the people around them, and they will lean in as hard as they possibly can to satisfy a need with other people that they care about. And so I want teammates, right? And if somebody can't be a teammate and they can't see themselves as being a teammate, it's pretty difficult to be part of our company, right? And you ask for that answer. There's a direct one, right? It's very important.
I love it. Well, Steve, we're just about out of time, but we always have one last question we ask all our CEO guests, and that's what kind of career and life advice would you give someone that perhaps has their eyes set, become a CEO like you someday?
Dave, thanks for that. For anybody who wants to end up in a gig like this, right? Who wants the opportunity to serve their people and to help them be better, I say, first and foremost, I say go for it, right? Don't limit yourself with regards to your own expectations being too low. Go for it. Go get it. Understand what the skills that you are. Understand the skills that you need in order to be comfortable and successful in the role that you want and you aspire to, but go get it. Second, I say broaden yourself. Again, across our conversation, Brand, I exposed that I had great leaders who were willing to help me understand that narrow doesn't get it done, broad does. And I say broaden yourself and go learn the other things that maybe you don't know enough about today that'll help you be successful in the future. And the third thing is get really comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Don't believe that you're going to find yourself in a comfortable spot once you attain, one rank, one title, one whatever. Get really comfortable being uncomfortable. Find that level of discomfort that is good for you. Make the status quo humble. Go after it, defeat it, and create a better future by virtue of that. But you have to be comfortable with some level of discomfort or being uncomfortable in order to achieve great success. So those three things, I think, in a nutshell, will help people a lot if they'll just do that.
Wonderful. Well, Steve Hedrick, Chairman and CEO at AVN Corp, thank you so very much for sharing your journey into the corner office.
Thank you, Brent. I'm grateful to you for having me on, and hopefully this will help anybody, just a little bit. And for anybody who's listening who'd like to be a teammate of mine, right, at AVN Corporation, look us up. We have a fantastic group with which to work, and we love to solve problems. So everybody have a great day, and thank you again, Brent, for having me on.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you for listening to Into the Corner Office with Brant Hanley. We hope you enjoyed hearing our guest CEO story as much as we did. If you want to hear more CEOs reveal their journey into the corner office, please subscribe via iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. For more information about Brant, Resource Options International, and the mighty middle market, visit www.goforroi.com. We look forward to having you join us for our next episode.